Clapton honed his craft playing gigs in both Richmond and the West End of London. After making a name for himself with his talents, he was asked to join the Yardbirds after the previous guitarist had left.
Everyone is going on stage with everyone else, and all these kind of venues where everybody's playing and everybody's meeting everyone else. I mean, that's sort of how all these guitarists fall through the Yardbirds in very quick succession, because it's all kind of quite incestuous. I think that's partly why Clapton goes through so many bands.
The Yardbirds found success with their first studio album, For Your Love, but Clapton himself would leave after just 2 years. The band would become music legend, though, due to the incredible lineup of guitarists that would follow in Clapton's footsteps.
That's when my baby went away.
For a band who sold relatively few records at the time, the Yardbirds had 3 extraordinary guitarists in Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, although of course not at the same time.
You know I still love only you.
What a lineup, it's absolutely astounding. I can't think of another act that's kind of encompassed such talented musicians as the Yardbirds.
I mean, there was no rock guitar before, you know, the likes of Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and stuff. They kind of set that bar for what we now call rock guitar.
So when you think about those characters, you think about Jeff Beck, the solo artist, Eric Clapton, Cream, the solo artist, and you think, you know, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page. And to think that they were all in this band that kind of made these psychedelic pop songs, it's mind-blowing.
Clapton's decision to leave the Yardbirds was out of a determination not to go down a pop-oriented path and to remain committed to the blues. He quickly moved on to the aptly named John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers.
If you look back to the Bluesbreaker period, in songs like Have You Heard and Hideaway, you've got these very raw solos which are showcases for what he could do. And with that space that he was given in that group, that's where you really see the creative genius of what he was doing. And he was a very, very young man.
Clapton's time in the Bluesbreakers would last mere months, though. He had befriended drummer Ginger Baker, and together with bassist and singer Jack Bruce, they decided to form arguably the world's first supergroup, Cream.
During the Cream time, Clapton probably was at his most innovative. It was during those days that he developed this thing called woman tone, which is his name for his guitar sound during that time. He'd crank his amp, select the neck pickup, turn the tone down, and what he ended up with was this big, thick, kind of woolly guitar tone that is basically what he was using during the kind of Cream days, Sunshine of Your Love. You can hear it, it just sounds like massive and kind of really thick, distorted, kind of fuzzy guitar sounding.
And they were seen as kind of very flashy musicians and quite kind of indulgent. And although that hasn't lasted, you know, that kind of music didn't stay in vogue right up until the present day, they were extremely influential in terms of that scene of indulgent, flamboyant rockers.
Cream became a global success, and Clapton's reputation as the undisputed king of rock guitar seemed safe, until a fan going by the name of Jimi Hendrix asked if he could join Cream on stage for a jam. His performance antics and guitar skills made Clapton leave the stage, asking Jimmy's manager, is he always this good?
It's almost impossible to evaluate the effect that Jimi Hendrix had when he emerged in London as well as his native America. This was someone who was as good, at least, as Clapton, who was steeped in the blues like Clapton, although not as much as Clapton. But he was also someone who had the showmanship and a cockiness and the swagger that Clapton would never, ever find. And he must have thought, not, oh, this is how to do it, because he knew that he couldn't. But he looked upon Jimi Hendrix admiringly.
Here is a guy who is young, who is hip, who is kind of exotic and doing something very unique and very special and quite extraordinary with the guitar in a way that they're only just fumbling towards. And I think Hendrix in London really changes things for everyone.
We went along to kind of quite a few gigs of Hendrix to kind of watch and see who this new guy was. I think actually members of like The Who went along as well, and the Beatles, just to check out this new talent. And I think as a result of that, it really influenced his style of playing. He went to America after he'd seen Hendrix and kind of, I think, started to change the way he was playing as a result of these gigs.
Despite their musical rivalry, Clapton and Hendrix became friends. There was mutual admiration between the two right up until Hendrix's untimely death. Clapton said that his death hit him hard.
When Jimi Hendrix died, Eric Clapton had actually bought a guitar for him as a present. And it was a left-handed guitar, and he was never able to give it to him.
Cream began to fall apart at the end of the 1960s, and they released their aptly titled farewell album, Goodbye.
Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce had towering egos. They couldn't get on. Poor Clapton, the mainspring of all this, was caught in the middle. And so, as they bickered, then the magic of Cream dissipated and just evolved off into the ether.
Eric Clapton never hung around too long with anyone, really. He just kind of kept moving from project to project, and you know, that's something that was instilled in him from his earliest kind of experiences in rock and roll.